Hello and welcome to the Capitola Planning Commission meeting for Thursday, September 4th, 2025. This meeting is open to the public with both in-person attendance at the City of Capitola Council Chambers at 420 Capitola Avenue, and remote viewing is also possible. The Planning Commission and staff are attending in person, and members of the public wanting to offer public comment need to be present. The public can live stream the meeting on the city's website, YouTube, or on Zoom following the link on the meeting agenda. As always, this meeting is cablecast live on Spectrum Communications Cable TV Channel 8 and AT&T Uverse Channel 99. It is being recorded to be rebroadcast on the following Mondays and Fridays at 1 p.m. on Spectrum Channel 71 and Spectrum Channel 25. The recording of the meeting will also be available on the city's website after the meeting. Our technician tonight is Melissa, and as a reminder, please turn off your cell phones during the meeting. Can we please have a roll call?
Commissioner Howard?
Here.
Commissioner Q?
Here.
Commissioner Welch?
Here.
Vice Chair Christensen? Here. Chair Esty?
Here. Now rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay. The first item on our agenda is number 2, new business. It is the oath of office of the newly appointed Planning Commissioner, TJ Welch.
I, TJ Welch, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California. I take this obligation freely, without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of which I'm about to enter.
Congratulations. Welcome, TJ. Okay, item number 3, additions and deletions to the agenda. We did get some additional materials.
Staff received additional materials, 3 emails for item 7A, and all have been included in the agenda packet.
Okay, thank you. Any changes to the agenda proposed? I don't think so. Okay. Okay, item 4, oral communications. Please review the section how to provide comments to the Planning Commission for instructions. Oral communications allows time for members of the public to address the Planning Commission on any consent item on tonight's agenda or any topic within the jurisdiction of the city that is not on the public hearing section of the agenda. Members of the public may speak for up to 3 minutes unless otherwise specified by the chair. Individuals may not speak for more than once during oral communications. All speakers must address the entire legislative body and will not be permitted to engage in dialogue. Do we have anybody from the public who would like to speak?
My name is Goran Klopic. I live 2-3 miles away from here. I did security in the past for Zelda's on the beach here on the venue with George. I called him back then my black brother George. During that time when I was doing this position faithfully, I encountered that there was some involvement of cocaine trafficking here in the city of Capitola going. I met with Andrew Daly, the chief, the past chief of Capitola, one time on our occasion to discuss this matter seriously. And he was listening to it and he knew exactly what I was talking about. I don't know if it was taken care of or not. My main concern is I was walking one time by Jade Street Park and a car tried to hit me. And at the moment I'm injured, my right foot is broken at the moment, and I cannot play ball. I cannot play basketball at the moment, but upsets me a lot. I don't know if that was an attempt on my life or something, because I'm talking about issues like that in the city of Capitola, but you have to be aware of that things like that happen, because I used to be a cop overseas one time when I was in the army. I was in the Schweizer Armee, Swiss Army, Swiss Armed Forces overseas. And I was guarding the gate with MPs together out during nighttime. So I know what it means to be threatened. Thank you very much for listening. God bless you all.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Okay, seeing none, let's move on to item 5, starting with the Planning Commission. Any comments from the commissioners? No, okay. Any staff comments right now? Okay. Thank you. Okay, item 6 is the consent calendar. All matters listed under consent calendar are considered by the Planning Commission to be routine and will be enacted by one motion in the form listed below. There'll be no separate discussion of these items prior to the time the Planning Commission votes on the action, unless the Planning Commission requests specific items to be discussed for separate review. Items pulled for separate discussion will be considered in the order listed on the agenda. Any of the commissioners we wish to discuss item A on the consent calendar? No. Okay, thank you. Can we have a motion to approve the consent calendar then?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Howard?
Aye.
Commissioner Q?
Aye.
Commissioner Welch?
Aye.
Vice Chair Christensen?
I abstain. I was absent.
Chair Esty?
Aye. Okay, thank you. Item number 7, public hearings. Public hearings are intended to provide an opportunity for public discussion of each item listed as a public hearing. The following procedure is as follows: a staff presentation, followed by Planning Commission questions. Item 3, a public comment session, Planning Commission deliberation, and then finally a decision by the Planning Commission. So the first one is Cliff Drive Resiliency Project and local coastal program amendments. And we have a staff presentation on that right now.
Good evening, commissioners. Tonight we have 2 representatives from the Cliff Drive Resiliency Project on Zoom. And I'm just waiting to see if we can pull them up onto the screen. So they're showing up on your end, the Zoom, just so that they show up on the presentation as well. We're just going to take a minute. Tonight on Zoom, we have Robert Stevens of CSW, and he's a project manager for the Cliff Drive Resilience Project, and he's also an engineer. And then Breeze Kinsey, and he's with CivicNet. He's part of the consultant team, and he is a coastal specialist. So he's worked a lot with the Coastal Commission and has been assisting in these LCP and LUP updates. So with that, I'm going to let Robert take over. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Commission. Can we please have the next slide? And so in 2024, we worked with the community as well as we presented to council in August 2024 with various different alternatives to stabilize the bluff along Cliff Drive. Council elected and recommended us to proceed with alternative 3, which was the full bluff protection. Next slide, please. And here would be an image of the full bluff protection. You can see Cliff Drive remains with a lane in each direction. It has bicycle lanes, and it has a Class 1 facility located along the coast. The current perpendicular parking would be converted to angular parking, and the whole face of the bluff would be reconfigured with a shotcrete concrete wall that's stained and tinted to match the natural bluff. It would have anchors embedded into the slope to prevent any erosion or failures of the slope. Next slide, please. Here's an illustration of the configuration of the corridor. This would be looking towards the village. You'll note that this shows the future rail trail segment. If that moves forward, that could be integrated into the design as we're proposing. Next slide, please. So as we advanced the project in late 2024 and early 2025, we started evaluating the costs, and we recognized that the award that the city received from the Federal Highway Administration to stabilize the bluff would not be enough to complete the full surfacing of the entire bluff segment. So the project is focusing on build out in a series of stages and phases over time as budget permits. And this first phase is really focusing on where the largest risk to Cliff Drive exists. And you can see it's this image here on the eastern section of the corridor. Next slide, please. This is an example of some of the issues that we're seeing here. There are sea caves that are forming because of wave run-up is causing erosion, and it's slowly allowing the bluff to fall. And you can see there the concrete soil nail wall that was installed in the 90s. It's been undermined on the rebar, and the other anchors that are in it are now being exposed. Next slide, please. So this is a concept of the different phasing for the project. And again, phase 1 is what the city would likely move forward with first. It's the funds that it has available. And then the recommendation would be to move forward with phases as funding permits and to address the most risky sections of the bluff first. Next slide. And then I think I'm handing it off to Breeze here regarding our LCP and LUP amendment.
Thank you, Robert, and hello, everyone. We recently held a community meeting to discuss the project and the local coastal program updates that we'll get into more ahead. And out of that came an excellent Q&A that identifies some of the common questions people were asking and provides some answers. And last week at the City Council, there was an update on the project. But I'm here more to talk about our local coastal program and land use plan. Local coastal programs implement the broader policies of the California Coastal Act They do this through a land use plan, which has higher level vision and ideals, and through the implementation plan, which handles that through the local municipal code. As you all know, the coast is an ever-changing place, and coastal policy must be revised to adapt to evolving conditions. This update is focused on ensuring consistency with current sea level rise and adaptation planning, and specifically focused on the Cliff Drive corridor and understanding the challenges and opportunities there for protection. Preserving and improving public access is a key part of the coastal access, as well as this update, and clarifying policies about bluff stabilization and shoreline structures are a key part of this. Next slide, please. The specific areas that we're seeing some change in this update include section 17.32, coastal protections, specifically to protect public access, are identified as an allowable use in certain zones, particularly in an open space zone. In section 17.68, it clarifies the definition of bluffs and identifies coastal hazards as an increasing challenge of life on the coast and the policy. It removes outdated references to landowners, infrastructure conditions, and amenities, and clarifies the 50-year timeframe to be used in analyzing project stability over the lifespan of projects. Next slide. In 17.64, allowances for low-intensity public access and restoration in certain areas identified as ESHA are allowed. And the Northwestern Pacific Railroad, though it has played a significant role in the history of Capitola, is no longer a landowner. And now that the Santa Cruz Regional Transportation Commission has taken over, many references to the old Northwestern Pacific Railroad lands were updated in this section and throughout the coastal program. Next slide. So both the implementation plan policies I just went over and the land use plan policies are being updated. The land use plan policies really serve to emphasize the importance of multimodal and public access improvements, especially in the Cliff Drive corridor, and acknowledge the challenges of sea level rise and the importance of planning for a resilient future. Some of the policies in here are designed to recognize the critical importance of Capitola Village and the unique consideration it must be given for this critical part of the city, which faces an increasing long-term vulnerability to coastal hazards as you proceed in your coastal adaptation planning efforts. And I will now pass it to Katie to describe some of the feedback we've been getting from this initial draft.
Okay, thank you. Thank you both. So I'm going to go through the changes that are proposed, and there were a couple items that as we went through this, we got comments from a couple residents as well as the Coastal Commission. So the first slides are related to the Coastal Commission's comments, then we'll go into different changes that we've become aware of since this was published. I've placed a draft of these next slides in front of you because they really get into the specifics of wording. And should we pass this tonight, I just wanted to make sure you had a copy in front of you. So we got the letter from the Coastal Commission, and I just wanted to break it down for you of what they were really asking for. And one is that this is towards the geologic hazard reports, and that the reports must follow a state standard. They also are required to evaluate different future scenarios, so looking at different timeframes, and then identifying the long-term risks from coastal hazards and considering adaptation strategies. And then the last item was safety standards. So with the new language that they were proposing, they introduced factors of safety and were very specific in their prescription of that for 1.5 static, which is when considering a normal non-earthquake condition, and then 1.1 pseudostatic when considering earthquake shaking forces. I'm not an engineer, so there was a learning curve here. And going through this, I understand that these levels are pretty typical. However, the way that they drafted these changes I'll get into, they're very specific and don't leave room for much flexibility should there be a better methodology applied to a certain area of the bluff. So what we've done is taken their recommendations and made a few changes. And there was definitely a miscommunication between the final drafts with the Coastal Commission. So that's why we got the letter on this one chapter and LUP section, but we're bringing forth amendments tonight on that. So this is the first item that they asked us to change. It's in the Geological Hazards District, and it was redlining changes in that first paragraph. It's great that they said all developments located on or adjacent to a beach. Before we've consistently had a 200-foot setback standard, so like really looking at just those that are adjacent to the beach. That's an improvement. And then the rest of these comments, upon reviewing, we had no concerns on. The next is the Land Use Plan, Chapter 5, Natural Hazards, the policy 7-2. This is where they got pretty specific on how we should be doing these safety standards. And when you're writing your LUP, it's the more general document, it's your more high-level planning document. So getting that specific doesn't really belong in this document. It belongs in your implementation plan. So our recommended changes are at the bottom of this slide, and to simply to update it to it's still requiring a 50-year planning horizon, safety of 50 years to make sure that the stability, the proposed development will be safe, and then site-specific analysis to be prepared by a California licensed geotechnical engineer or certified engineering geologist and accepted by the city of Capitola. So not getting that specific on like the rates of safety within our LUP. And then next, on this slide at the top is the Coastal Commission recommended language. And this, we've kind of used the similar language to that previous slide, but put in the specificity of slope stability shall meet minimum factors of safety of 1.5 static and 1.1 seismic. But then we built in, unless otherwise justified by a site-specific analysis prepared and sealed by a California licensed. Then we get more. So there's a little more room for flexibility, and it's not just one specific standard. So that's our recommended changes for that. So that's the Coastal Commission, and that'll be our recommendation tonight, is to bring those changes in. Next, I'm going to go through a number of changes that were brought up. We received letters about Hooper Stairs, and not referencing the fact that sometimes they're there and sometimes they're not. And usually after a big storm, they're not. So since 2023, I want to say, we did a repair, I think in 2022, and then several months later, they were gone again because of the big storm. So to fix that, the text in white is exactly what was in the packet today. And our suggested modification is to add the sentence, the wooden staircase is often impacted during storm events, causing temporary closures to the Cliff Drive access to Hooper Beach. So acknowledging that, and this is the first part of the land use plan, when it just gives you kind of an overview of the access along Cliff Drive. The next is on page 22 of the agenda packet, and it's page 25 of the LUP. Another reference to the Hooper's Stairs, and I'm recommending including the same sentence of the wooden staircase is often impacted during storms, causing temporary closures to the Cliff Drive access to Hooper Beach. And then lastly, on page 23, I didn't put word for word exactly because it makes a reference as noted above, and I just said is often impacted during storm events causing temporary closures. So really making it clear that that has been an issue over the years and is an important piece of this. So next, there were two other items the Coastal Commission staff brought up, and it was due to just when we removed A, we didn't renumber B to A, so that's a simple one. And this is policy 2-7. And there was also on policy 2-10, this is page 32 of the packet and page 35 of the land use plan. I didn't see this reference to the Regional Transportation Commission, so we're updating that to strike out and seek, it said regional transportation funds for development. And due to Measure L, where the goal here was to remove a lot of those items that seemed like they'd be in conflict. So I'm suggesting that we remove that. We removed this in another section. There's another reference to this, so there were two, but the other one was in the packet. This is another, again, we got rid of A under implementation, so we just needed to redo the numbering. And this is on page 46 and 47 of your Planning Commission agenda packet. And it's page 84 and 85 of the land use plan. This is something I thought we had removed, and a question came up on this today from Chair Esty. And so I'm suggesting that we remove a couple items here, because it talks about runoff is, and it says filtered and treated and directed away from the coastal bluffs. That's not always practical. So, so striking that, and then in the next sentence, or the next paragraph down, as a condition of approval of any coastal adaptation strategy along Cliff Drive, it says require the removal of any non-native and invasive species and replace with native bluff plants and explore the feasibility. So I'm suggesting we remove the required removal of any non-native and invasive plants and replace with native. That could impact the bluff if we start removing plants, and it should not be, if there's a condition that the person studying it says we should remove a non-native plant, then we would include that as a condition of approval, but I don't think it should be required on all applications. So, so that concludes all the changes that we had on our end. And tonight, the recommended action is to adopt resolutions recommending City Council approval of the amendments to Capitola Municipal Code Chapters 17.32, 17.64, 17.76, 17.68, and Land Use Plan Chapters 2 and 7, with the updated red lines provided during the hearing. And with that, I'm available for any questions.
Okay, commissioners, do we have questions? We also asking questions of the other two presenters? Are we allowed to do that?
Yes.
Any questions? Let's start with that. Do we have any questions for the two presenters on the actual plan for Cliff Drive? Go ahead, feel free.
Well, so we received 2 letters from residents, and I think I get it right. They were concerned about the bluff between the section 3, I think, and the wharf. There are 4 or 5 houses. Was that, was there any discussion around that? Was that, I wasn't sure what they were asking, I think is what I'm getting at. Were they asking for the city to look at buffering their bluffs as well? And was there any thought to that as we did this project?
So we've received a few, I think you got 2 different comments on that. And we're hoping, I think the discussion has been that it's time to, there was a meeting when the project was kicked off with those residents. And so I think it's time probably for another meeting with those residents. So I can't answer that for them of exactly what they're looking for, but I think like more, there was definitely talk in there about just helping with the stability and the concern of, while we're improving along our bluff, the impacts to their houses as well. So I think it was asking for them to be included in the project somehow within a phase.
What does phase 3 include, that project area, or is that separate?
So currently, it does not include that area. It's public funds that will be used for this, and so it will be just on the property that is publicly owned.
Right, so It was hard to see in that slide on phase 3. Phase 3 includes the stairs going down to Hooper's Beach, is that correct?
So Robert, I'm going to ask for your help on these.
Yeah, so the project limits for the city's portion are within the public right-of-way along Cliff Drive, and the staircase would be part of that.
Of phase 3. That's what I
It
understand.
would be
right?
part of a future phase, yes.
So let's be clear about this. So we're doing phase 1 because we're funding limited. And we're going to do phase 2 once we find a sugar daddy. And then we're going to do phase 3. So it's going to take a decade to get stairs back onto from Cliff Drive down to Hooper Beach? Is that?
Sorry. So in the interim, we'll be rebuilding the stairs down to Hooper Beach.
Okay.
Yep.
I think that's what the source of your question.
Yeah, I think that's,
I'm sorry.
That's where we're kind of going. We just, so the stairs are going to be improved prior to phase 2 or 3?
Yes. So I think the idea here is to bring back a wooden stair
Right.
case, and I'm speaking. I'm not quite sure of the details there, but in the long range plan, I believe it's going to be a more permanent fix and be built into the stability of the slope,
Okay, but it's
similar to what you see at like Pleasure Point area.
point, sure. That would be great. But that's not part of any of these 4 phases that are being mentioned tonight. The long-range plan for the stairs?
Robert, the long range plan for the stairs would be in phase 3, correct?
Yeah, we would expect that the stairs would be integrated into the concrete wall, and that would likely occur in phase 3.
Copy. Great. And I think the ask, at least from my understanding, and the individuals that reached out to me about those homes there, is they're willing to help figure that process, but they want to tie it in with a larger project. So I would hope that we could somehow include them in that process. And I think part of that is the connectivity from that existing staircase and what may be the long-range staircase to the wharf itself, and not just Hooper's Beach. So I think I think that was one of the asks of the community that lives in that area.
Yeah, I would imagine as a homeowner there, their biggest obstacle is the coastal commission. So being able to lump their segment in with the greater project and maybe have the homeowners pay for it would be a win-win. We help them through the regulatory process and they fix the wall. Something to think about, I suppose. The other question I had was, do we have any idea what the estimated budget was for the whole thing versus the phases?
Robert, do you know an answer to that?
Yeah, so it's, you know, the overall price for this project in today's dollars is probably in the $30 to $45 million horizon.
Today's dollars and double that in 10 years.
So doing the math, are we consuming the full 10.5 we're getting from FHWA for the 125 feet that consist of phase 1?
That is correct.
So the other phase, you don't, on your drawings that were shown on page 10 and 11 of the August 12th presentation show 343 feet for phase 3, an unnumbered number of feet for phase 2, and I think another 100 and something for phase 3, or phase 4, and phase 3 wasn't delineated, but whatever, it's going to be more than 30 million at $80,000 a linear foot. Just unless the other phases are not as intense as the phase 1, because phase 1 is more damaged.
Each phase has its own unique attributes associated with it. And so they do vary. It's not a strict linear foot cost.
Okay, that's a good answer. While I'm talking, I have a bit of a, it may be a nit, but it might be illegal, it might affect what we're doing here. On your map, page 10, underneath what is, I think, phase 4, on the western side of this thing, the map shows that that beach is lands of Santa Cruz County, and to the right, it says lands of Capitola. Don't we own all of that property, all the way to the end of this Cliff Drive, all the way up to unincorporated Santa Cruz? Otherwise, we may have to bargain with the county of Santa Cruz for some of this stuff.
The roadway itself is within a public right-of-way for the benefit of the city of Capitola, but there are some real parcels of land that are at the base of the slope that are either city of Capitola or the county of Santa Cruz.
What this means for us is so right now the project is still in the planning phase, and eventually the final project will go before city council for a decision. And at that point, the project will then come back to the planning commission for a local coastal permit. And it will also need a local coastal permit from the county. So, or the city council could choose to do a consolidated coastal permit, which would, we've done that before on several projects in which it would just go straight to the coastal commission as one item. But yes,
Okay, that's
Interesting.
the project will also have to be approved by the coastal commission because portions of it are under the mean high water point, so in their original jurisdiction.
It's interesting, since the apartments are in the city of Capitola, how the beach below them would be in the county. It's interesting. I think one more point I was going to make on the 4 homes, or the people who wrote letters, is involving them in that coastal permit process will assist. It was my understanding that maybe one of the engineer folks on the line can help us out. That part of the problem with the wharf was the deflection coming back from the cliff. And I think while them having a seawall may help protect them the best, it may also cause a larger problem for the city and the wharf. So it seems it would behoove us to have them involved in that process and tie that project, and whoever pays for it, but that it's all one continuous project. That's all I had about that.
okay. Any other questions or comments about the project part of this before we move to the proposed amendments? Okay, let's go on to the proposed changes to the land use plan and to the city ordinance. Any questions there about the language we're going to change, proposing changing?
Are we talking about just the coastal commission?
Just
portion?
questions about the land use plan.
Land use plan, proposed changes to land use plan.
Yeah, I may have a few there. I think for me, as I read through it, it's trying to be consistent with our city municipal code and policies.
I just want to clarify questions before we go to public hearing, and then
Okay. Oh, yeah.
so if it's comments, we should hold off.
Good, I don't have any questions, thank you.
There was another reference to RTC on page 33 of our presentation. I forget the chapter reference on that one, but anyway, you can find that after the fact. And then, well, on page 47, I would propose to get rid of the phrase that says we have to put camouflage over the drainage system.
Could you repeat that?
In page 47, you talked about changes to invasive plants and all that, page 46, 47. There was also reference to us putting camouflage over drainage systems, which seems to be a superfluous cost with little benefit. I think that was...
That consist of just painting the drainage system, or would it be like a camouflage? I mean, that's a silly question, I guess. I mean,
It might be like to match the color.
Yeah.
But yeah, it doesn't look like we're going to have any public comment tonight, but we should probably open the public.
Yeah, no, right.
Sure.
If there are no other questions, we'll go to public comment. Is there anybody in the audience that would would like to make a comment about this before we go on to deliberation? Okay, and seeing none, let's bring it back to the commissioners to talk about this and what we think about the changes that are being proposed. Let's break it up in parts. Let's talk about the staff recommendation to the proposed changes by the Coastal Commission to what we had already written. So on this handout, it's policy 7-2 and then policy, let's do the land use one first. Staff recommendation for changing the language about putting in the margins of safety on the work and also who does the work. It's on the third or fourth page of our presentation. Are we okay with that language that is being recommended?
Yeah, this works for me. I mean, we don't have much wiggle room between like the static and the pseudostatic, and I think it's always good to have a professional engineer kind of like have them out there when we do need to make those changes.
Okay. All right, next one, and let's talk about 1768-160. It's sort of similar, that language. It is basically similar.
Yep, this is when we call out the 1.5, but we build in another, unless otherwise justified by a site-specific engineer.
My feelings on this are the same.
Okay. Let's then talk about, how about just the language about these stairs on Hooper Beach, and there's 3 or 4 references to them. You okay with the statement there? They're often impacted during storm events.
Question, Katie, on that. Is there a bias to just get rid of the stairs in the long run because they continue to get destroyed? Because the continued reference sort of led me there. There's other access.
Oh, no, but I can, now that you say that, but no, I think the overall intent within the Coastal Act and the rest of the LUP is always to maintain coastal access. So this is highlighting an issue that should be addressed. So I have 3 slides on that same change.
Okay. There's some minor changes there. Let's see, on the Coastal Commission comments, we're accepting everything except for the changes we talked about for this. Okay. So I don't know if you've all had a chance to read what the Coastal Commission said in terms of their pretty much additions to the language that staff had already proposed. Mm-hmm. A fair amount of material there. It all looks okay to me, but you need to read it, I think, pretty carefully.
That's good.
Katie, this is obviously applies to the project, right? The road repair. Does any of it then gets transferred to future developments of people developing homes in the cliff with the levels of?
Yes, yep. So this 17.68160, that will go in our zoning code, and it's not specific to only Cliff Drive. It's specific to any development along the bluff or adjacent to the beach.
And I don't, just off the cuff, know, is it much more onerous for a builder? Would it be a lot harder to fulfill their obligations than it is today with those, what's the phrase you use, static, 1.5 static, 1.1 seismic?
I think this is typical, but you just want to build in some flexibility for special situations with different geological things happening. But yeah, the project engineer may suggest that they approach the study differently, and this gives us the ability to accept a different approach.
In the projects I've been involved with, the 1.5 is for static and 1.1 for the earthquake. They call it pseudostatic. Quasi-static is what my engineers would use. That's pretty normal. But you might want to increase the 1.1 if you thought there was some part of the, or reduce it if you thought something about the geology made it, higher or lower. That's why I think we need the flexibility. It's a good idea. Okay, let's see, so let's just open it up more widely. Are there other comments about some of the red lines to the LUP? Let's do with that first.
Just to touch on the drainage for other bluffside projects, if one were to develop a house along the bluff, that nothing could be directed towards the bluff side. Like no drainage, everything would need to be treated on site and then directed via mechanical or passive pump to municipal drainage. Is that kind of how that applies?
Where feasible, so it says the city shall construct future drainage projects and improve existing drainage facilities where feasible so that runoff is directed away from the coastal bluff.
Okay, not absolute, but it doesn't, making these huge dissipation pits and then pumping it to the street that's not like an absolute rule, kind of.
It's not an absolute.
Okay.
I don't know, Breeze, if you'd like to add to that.
I think the idea here, and specific to some of your comments earlier around camouflaging it, was that particularly the Cliff Drive project would ideally be able to treat water within the project and either dissipate it, direct it inland, or dissipate it through the project at the base of the bluff in a way that doesn't increase erosion. But the main thing is, wherever possible, reducing the risk of erosion through drainage improvement as part of projects, but allowing that flexibility where it's simply not feasible.
Okay, so then the feasibility would then be addressed by the professional.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments about the land use?
I should ask on this slide, would you like me to get rid of that last and camouflage all drainage elements to minimize impacts to visual resources?
I just know up on Opal Cliffs, they direct anything that comes off the bluff, they direct all the way to the bottom, and just so it doesn't, it's nice for erosion, and it's also nice for visual impact, just because you don't want to see a bunch of, ugly pipes coming off.
So through paint?
Yeah, paint, landscaping, stuff like that.
Okay, that's fine with me. Okay, let's talk about the ordinance change, proposed ordinance changes. Any comments on that? Any of the Chapter 17 stuff? TJ, you were saying something earlier.
New system here, you have to get used to it. So, new guy. I was talking in general through the document as we move forward with some of these language changes that we try to be consistent, and we're consistent with city policy that's currently there in the municipal code. And I mentioned to Katie earlier today to look at some of this. We talk about multimodal through the process, and I think it should be consistent through there. I think to use language that's brought out in here as bicycle, a lot of this is obviously tied back into what was there from the RTC time. And when we look at Municipal Code 8.72, we talk about the intent is for the safety of pedestrian and bicyclists as we travel through the area. So I think we just need to be careful. I would like to be careful on how we word the land use policy so that it matches our city policy. And I know the council just approved to look at a new bike pass through the city of Capitola, but I think our community has spoken and passed a municipal code, well, some people still call it Major Rail, but municipal code 8.72, that specifically is concerned about routing bicycles in areas that don't have bike lanes and specifically through the village. So there are a couple pages. I think Katie was trying to look at some of them. I mean, we could go page by page, but I think if we just look at replacing bicycle, pedestrian with multimodal, then we don't have to be concerned about that process because we could replace pedestrian or bicycle interactively. That would be my one concern through the process, and it ties in back with the Cliff Drive resiliency on how we widen and stuff, because once you get down to the hotel, we have an area that limits the width of that would be needed for, well, they're calling it a type 1 bike path on Cliff Drive, which is that really what is proposed as a type 1, a class 1, I'm sorry, a class 1 bike lane? I think I read in there it said class 1, and I'm not sure how that.
Along a portion of Cliff Drive, it is a class 1 from the parking lot to the east.
Oh, you're talking about on the north side of the street?
No, on the ocean side, where the wall, the bluff would be replaced, there would be a class 1 facility that would extend along a portion of the repaired Cliff Drive.
So there'd be a separated from the roadway to the pedestrians and bikes?
Correct.
Okay, very good. And it would have to be, I guess, is that through all 4 segments or for all 4 phases of that plan?
Right now, it's shown to begin where the parking is, the overlook parking is.
Okay.
And it's east to the easterly terminus of the wall.
Okay. Very good. So it'd be nice to tie that whole process in, but it's going to get minimized once we get down to the intersection at Wharf and Cliff Drive. So that was my primary concern, is that that we craft the wording in this so that it doesn't put us in a position that we can't meet the obligations of our municipal code as it goes. Does that make sense to you folks?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So just so I'm clear, for any area where it talks about bicycles and pedestrians, just to replace that with multimodal.
Does that sound like an easy fix
Very easy fix, yeah.
without having to go into detail of each one of those? And then, it leaves the interpretation up to that process when we get there.
And just to be clear, that would be for the chapter 2 and chapter 7. We would go through for the land use.
Right.
Okay.
I could go page by page, but I think you have them. You understand what the concept. And we talk about in some of the policies that of doing multimodal, but then it kind of goes back and forth between bikes.
Any other comments? I guess, DJ, anything else?
I do have a few more things.
Go on then.
I hope you guys brought plenty of water. It talks about on, this is, I don't know if it's page 31 or 34 of our packet, item 7A, on the wharf area. It talks about low intensity facilities that provide complementary public services, i.e. food services, and then under that implementation is develop concessionaire agreements. But I just want to make sure that doesn't tie us into when we say small, low-intensity facilities, that doesn't preclude us from having a restaurant at some point if that's the way the community wishes to go. Is that correct?
That's correct. Is that policy 2-6?
Yes, 2-6, yes.
2-6.
It says complete restoration of the wharf as a free access public fishing pier and develop small, low-intensity facilities that provide complementing public services, and then in parentheses, food service facilities, fishing, boating, accessory shop, maintenance, and repair, water taxi service, and public restrooms.
Correct. In my mind, a restaurant may not be a small, low-intensity facility, so I just want to make sure we're clear it doesn't preclude that. Nobody else has anything? I'm sorry.
Keep going.
I noticed in some of the areas we talked earlier about the capital improvement plan, I guess intersection. And I was unaware that the city has a written capital improvement plan for projects. Can we confirm if I could be wrong. I don't know if that's the case or not.
So I think at different times, the city has had a CIP, a capital improvement plan. The last one I'm aware of, I think was, I want to say 2016 or 2018. But, so I think it's hasn't been consistent. And it usually comes through the Public Works Department. I know Jessica's brought this up in the past, and it's a good tool for the city to have.
Well, it seems that with 4 phases of a project, it may be something to consider here. Otherwise, we may never get the money if we don't plan for it, right? That's just a thought. I think that's pretty much what I had. I did have some stuff, and we get over to the table and we talk about some of the zoning districts. And, one thing I noticed that was not consistent throughout the process was looking at the coastline completely. We talk about Cliff, and I know that's kind of the specific area we're looking at now, the Cliff Drive. We talk about the village area, but when we get to that, it kind of stops. It doesn't really go beyond the Depot Hill Bluff area. And I just want to make sure that we're consistent in public paths, coastal coastways, as it's brought out in the permitted land use areas, that the Depot Hill Bluff is considered part of that coastal, not just access, but view shed and stuff in that area. Does that make sense? I don't know that we're consistent, but do you believe that it's part of that plan under the Capitola Village? Is that encapsulated? Or?
I know there are definitely references to the Depot Hill Bluff as long
There are
as,
some,
as
yes.
the Park Avenue Bluff, but within the entire land use program. So, but I can go back and take a look at that.
Yeah, I think it'd be nice to be consistent with how we address protecting our coastal area through the whole city limits of Capitola.
And I'll just take this opportunity to note briefly that this update is focused especially on the Cliff Drive area.
Yes.
And a broader planning effort to come on resiliency within Capitola could address some of those consistencies across the city.
Great. So we're not tonight, we're not looking at the land use
No.
plan as a whole. We're just trying to fix those areas that are the Cliff Drive.
So this is really focused on this Cliff Drive resiliency. We are required by law to adopt a coastal resiliency, a climate adaptation plan. So we have applied for the first step of that currently for a sea level rise study, which will be done by the Public Works Department. But then following that study, we'll start to work on a climate adaptation plan, and that will come through the Planning Commission. And at that time, we'll be updating this entire document.
Thank you for educating the new guy. Sorry for putting myself out there, but yeah, it just seems there's a lot of inconsistencies. And so we're going to more or less piecemeal it now to get the Cliff Drive program through. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I'm on board now. Thank you. I'll reserve my other comments till that time.
Okay, I guess the question I'm not totally comfortable with voting on these recommendations tonight, to be honest, because there've been a number of changes, the Coastal Commission wording changes, the stuff we talked about, stuff like that. We could take another, send this back to staff and then have them just do a new clean sheet thing so we can see, what all the changes all at once, and move this to the next meeting to approve it. But I'd like to hear what you all think about that. You comfortable with how it is proceeding right now, or you want a clean sheet one?
I'm good with the way it is now. I would press the staff to go ahead and finish the project, and I'd vote for that, but I could be swayed.
Yeah, I'd even like to make a motion that we wait and have a updated plan so all the wording is correct. And even looking at the resolution, some of the wording goes back to the pedestrian bicycle stuff that I like to see that change before we actually go approve. So I don't know if we're ready for a motion yet, but I'd like to make a motion that we wait until the wording is correct and look at this another time and make a motion.
Okay, we got motions on, I think, two resolutions here, right? First one's on page 16 of our package, Resolution 24. We should do them independently, I think. Let's start with that one. You want to move that we delay Resolution 24 to the next, for staff to review, to implement all the changes that we talked about tonight and then present it at the next Planning Commission meeting?
That's correct.
Okay, do
24, yes.
we have a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay, can we have a roll call?
So just to clarify, it is a motion to continue.
It's a motion to continue, yeah, right, sorry.
Commissioner Howard?
Aye.
Commissioner Q?
Aye.
Commissioner Welch?
Aye.
Vice Chair Christensen?
Aye.
Chair Esty?
Aye. And then the next resolution, many pages down. Resolution, oh, it's 24 also, whatever. It's on page 34. And this is the one that's talking about the ordinance changes to 17 of the zoning ordinance. Do we have a motion on to approve those changes or to delay them?
I'll make a motion to approve it then.
Approve as amended?
As amended.
Okay, do we have a second on that?
Sure, I'll second.
All right, can we have a roll call for that?
Commission,
I'm sorry, can I just get a clarification? That's the one that's also going to come back to us to,
This is the changes to the zoning code.
yes, okay.
And so the motion that's on the floor is a motion to a positive recommendation to the city council
Okay.
with the staff amendments, or yeah, with the amendments brought up today at the meeting,
Okay.
So to be clear, those,
and including the change to multimodal.
yes, thank you. So those are chapters 17.32, 17.64, 1776, and 1778. So we'd approve the changes as proposed by staff with the addition of multimodal and replacements for pedestrian and references to pedestrians and bicycles. That's, I think, what we're trying to say.
Correct.
Okay.
Commissioner Howard?
Aye.
Commissioner Q?
Aye.
Commissioner Welch?
Aye.
Vice Chair Christensen?
Aye.
Chair Esty?
Aye. Okay, that concludes the public session. Let's move on to the director's report, item 8.
Okay, thank you. And first, I just want to say welcome back, Commissioner Welch. You were on the Planning Commission for many years while I was earlier in my career here, and it's I know you put in a lot of time and dedication in a Planning Commission and with other things throughout our community. TJ is always the first one to show up when we have an emergency in town too. I don't know if everyone knows that, but if a building blows up or the floods are coming in, TJ's there, and I usually, yeah, none of that, but yeah, just dedicated to Capitola, and it's wonderful to have you back. So I wanted to give you an update on the city council meeting last week. We discussed the mall updates, and I presented 3 options to the city council. The first option was to update our objective standards in anticipation of larger buildings and new types of architecture. And that would have our normal planning process of stakeholder engagement in the beginning, community input, and typically, as you've experienced, a zoning code update usually takes somewhere from probably 3 to 6 months, 3 being very optimistic, so 4 to 6 months, I would say. If it's not too substantial, we've had when, we'll be focused in on 2 chapters of the zoning code. So I think 4 to 6 months is realistic. The mall owners, Merlone Geyer, they requested that we stay to the schedule that is in the housing element, which says it'll be done by December of 2025. At this point, we had discussions going with Merlone Geyer, which I'll get into my third option was for form-based code, and that had me pivot and start looking into form-based codes and did a lot of research on that. And then ultimately, once they heard the timing of a form-based code, they asked that we go back to the objective standards. So the option 2 is to do objective standards. It would be, we'd have a stakeholder meeting at the very beginning. And this is all with Ben Noble planning these all options. And then following the stakeholder meeting, the public input would really happen at the Planning Commission and City Council meeting. So it's really a streamlined process in order to adopt it. And we were saying they requested December. I think at a minimum it would be January, just due to the holidays and the limited meetings and the amount of hearing time and noticing time that's required with these types of updates. The third option was form-based code, which includes a regulating plan. It really looks at the map, that the underlying, how the streets will line up on the mall property and the buildings and how they come together with the streets. And with that, when I did my research on that, the price tag associated with that is typically $150,000 to $200,000. It usually takes about a year. Knowing that Merlone Geyer was asking for expedited time and talking with the sub-consultant that would work with Ben, they said we could probably get that down to 7 months and a cost of $150,000. So took that to the city council. At their meeting, they decided to continue it. They really want to understand Merlone Geyer's commitment to this project. And so that's what will be happening next Thursday. So stay tuned. Questions came up from the public as in my presentation, I presented the amount of units within our housing element associated with the Merlone Geyer properties, as well as within the entire mall block. And our RENA number is 1,336 units. And that's a mix of affordability from very low, mod, and then market rate. Within the mall block, there are 1,777 sites, and that is because in order to get the low, very low, and mod, the units that are below your moderate income levels to get, it takes a lot more of you have to produce a whole lot more market rate housing in order to make it profitable for the developer, in order to get to that development. So the numbers you'll see, I'm going to put out an explanation on this tomorrow that will be attached to the city council packet, but you'll see that the lower income numbers went down and the amount of market rate numbers is really high within that whole mall section because of comments we received during the process of we were putting too much of the burden on the mall developer without giving them enough incentivize. So we had started off with 5 mall properties. By the end, we included all of the mall sites that we thought could possibly redevelop within that mall block. So I'll be publishing more information on that, but I know there's a lot of questions. I know it's a topic of conversation right now, so I just want to get the facts out there, and that will happen tomorrow. And then also we have the active appeal on the fence permit for the Park Avenue RTC fence. We toured the property with RTC and the appellant, and I have no update on any changes to that at this point, but there has been good communication. The council set the date for October 9th for that appeal. So I'll keep you tuned on that. And that concludes my director's report. Thank you.
Okay, any further questions on that?
I didn't know there was, so somebody came forward and said they didn't like the RTC fence. Is that what that appeal was?
They don't like the location of it along the bluff. So, and their appeal is based on coastal findings.
meeting.
And I can't get too involved in it because it's an active application, but it was really about the location of the fence, not the overall look or materials. So realigning it.
Okay, thank you. And with that, we adjourn until the next meeting on October 2nd. Thank you all.